Welcome to the CGT China panel, and my name is Chen. I'm very pleased to be here today. I'm the VP of Gene Synthesis and Mobile LCS at Thermo Scientific. So we are all inspired by the recent advances in cell and gene therapy and the integration of the novel technologies in cell and gene therapy really inspired us. This includes the CRISPR-edited cell therapy, the induced pluripotent stem cell integrated into the next-gen therapy, and also the mRNA therapeutics. There are so many great things happening out there in China, and this is why today we are very happy to have Felix and Yuling here. And there are more targets to be explored, more clinical trials, and more patients being enrolled in trials. And in terms of pipeline, definitely US and China are holding the leading position in terms of pipeline. And I'm thrilled to join the China market leaders here for the next 30 minutes to share with you about the China cell and gene therapy. So Felix and Yuling, could you please briefly introduce yourself?
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Yuling Lee. I'm the CEO of Innoforce Pharmaceuticals. Myself, after 30 plus years of life in the US and 25 plus years of global pharmaceutical career, I took a decision and returned to China to embrace this substantial growth opportunity in the China pharmaceutical development, and returned to China, founded Innoforce. And I'll give a little bit of a introduction of the company at a later part of the panel discussion. Thank you. Alex?
Hi, I'm Felix Wang. I'm the Senior Vice President and Global Head of the Advanced Therapy Business Unit for WuXi AppTec. The business unit that we have is headquartered in Philadelphia, but we recently, last year, Q4 of last year, we actually opened up manufacturing and testing for advanced therapies also in China, in WuXi City. So I've been with WuXi going on 11 years. For us, we've been doing cell therapy manufacturing since 2004, and we've been doing serious gene therapy manufacturing for the last 5 or 6 years. So very exciting space to be, both in the US and China, and I look forward to the session with you guys. So.
Thank you. So China is one of the largest and fast evolving market in cell and gene therapy. And every year, there are about 1 million people who are willing to pay for the cell therapies. So could you please share a little bit of your insight into the China market and 5 years ago, which might differ quite much from the current picture?
Yeah, so I think 3 to 5 years ago, there really wasn't a cell therapy market in China. Almost all the cell therapies were done in the hospital. So the hospital would make the cell therapy, give it to the patient, charge the patient. And so not only there wasn't really what I'd call an industrial market, but it really wasn't regulated either. I think both of those factors have changed. So when we get into the next discussion about regulatory, we'll get more into that. On the gene therapy side, there really wasn't a lot of gene therapy. There was actually a little bit more work in the oncolytic virus side, and a couple of approved oncolytic viruses in China.
Yeah, so I would just say take a few more years back into where China actually was one of the first countries approved the gene therapy product, Jandeson, that was a P53-based therapy approved in 2004. Cell therapy area, as what Felix said, is really, really active in China, but it is in a little awkward situation, for lack of a better word. But if you're looking at overall 4,000 plus of cell therapy studies ongoing in China, so those numbers, it's really a stunning high number. But some of them were run like a drug. And if you look at in the NMPA registry, it's about 20 some of this is in the clinical registration. But then many of those are run as a medical technology. And we'll talk about this in the next question. But if you look at also the substantial growth and take a simple number in just the investment, community, VC, PE are pouring their money into this market because they anticipate need and also the market growth. The 2018 number counted more than 5.5% of the total healthcare investment went into cell therapy, gene therapy side. That's a lot for that big market there.
Yeah, thank you. While we are visualizing the dramatic changes in the booming interest and also the enthusiasm of the investment, what do you see about any surprises that are very unique to China market versus that of North America and Europe?
Yeah, so China's going to be very different from a regulatory standpoint because the Chinese government has deemed cell and gene therapy a protected industry. And what that means is that there can be zero foreign investment in China for cell and gene therapy. You really can't do licensing. So for companies that are looking to bring their products into China, there is a way to get there. We'd have to spend probably, and I'd bring the WuXi lawyers over the next half hour to 60 minutes talking about the different strategies to do it. But that does change the outlook. And the reason China's doing a protected industry, I think they're trying to protect the companies in China until they get up and running for cell and gene therapy. They actually did that a number of years back for biologics and monoclonals. Mm-hmm. And then a couple years, recently, they opened up the market again. So that's one of the regulatory changes. I think another one is that they've actually put a lot of rules in. So the Department of Science passed a regulation called the Genetic Material Requirement. That was actually passed in July 1st of this year. What that basically means is that you need to have a permit to work with Chinese genetic material. Mm-hmm. You basically, and only approved organizations can store and work with that material. So that's different. You really don't see that, I think, in Europe and the US. And then the last part is, you have two regulatory bodies that I think are trying to set what the guidelines are, but they're not necessarily in sync, I would say. So you have the NMPA, which I would almost look like the FDA for us. Mm-hmm. And they have set guidelines for CAR T, and they've also set some guidelines for BLA requirements, okay? And then you have the MFH, which I consider more like the Department of Health, mm-hmm. and they work to regulate the hospitals. Well, they just put out a new set of guidelines that are in review right now, and those guidelines basically propose that cell therapy can be done in the hospitals like it has been done historically without a BLA requirement. So I think the regulations will continue to evolve in China, and we're all kind of watching. I thought 6 months ago it had been settled. I'm not sure it's settled yet, so we'll see what happens there. So.
Yeah, thank you, Felix. Actually, when we talk about the regulation, this is a super important element for patients and for this industry. One of the latest news is about the China market now having the select elite Chinese hospitals soon will be able to sell the experimental therapies without approval from the National Drug Administration. So 3 years back, we all know the WuXi, that's a tragedy, and the whole immune cell therapy has been shut down. So now people commented, oh, China goes back to the WuXi time. So what is your insight on this one?
Please.
Well, first of all, I would say that the China regulations is an evolving environment. And so just this, to me, personally, my opinion is this is a temporary setback. It is very complicated, as Felix just mentioned, having the two systems that are not in sync with each other and having the most complex biological products, such as cell therapy, not in a heavy regulation. And I am a CMC professional from Roche, Human Genome Sciences, GSK, and then AstraZeneca, MedImmune. And we know how complicated it is making biologic product, and even just from the monoclonal antibody side of the world. And you imagine a product that has all the magnitudes of complexity, not only by the size, but just by all the control point and everything else, and its impact in efficacy and safety to patients. It has to be regulated as a drug. But if we take a look of the regulation evolving in China, then one should see that China, now part of the ICH, many of the regulation and policy is moving toward closer and closer to the mainstream US, EU side of the regulation. So my personal commitment and also our company's development strategies, we will join the opportunity to develop cell and gene therapy product, but in the international standard, develop it as a drug, as GMP regulated overall manufacturing and all the conduct and follow that procedures. And not only that, it's probably even more, and for those of you who in this audience, we don't need further talk about that, but the CMC aspect of in gene and cell therapy is very, very important. And that is actually how our company take our position in this.
I agree. It's going to be interesting to see how the two regulatory bodies play this out. I do think one of the things that you will see, and this is getting a little bit into the next question though, but you're going to have to see the manufacturing standards go up in China too. So I think prior to this, people did manufacture, but they didn't manufacture to international standards. So it actually wouldn't be, it wasn't unheard of. In fact, I know they do this because I did talk to a CEO of one of the CMOs where they would do, for an aseptic product like cell and gene therapy, they'd manufacture it in a Class C clean room under a Class A hood and hope it all stayed sterile. So things will change in this business.
Absolutely. So while challenges always come together with the opportunities, there are tons of opportunities in China market. So what is your take on the biggest challenges for the China cell and gene therapy market to leapfrog in the next couple of years?
I'll say a couple of things and we'll turn it over. So I think one of the things that's going to be challenging for this market, if the market is going to become truly a big market, is going to be around manufacturing. So you're going to have to be able to manufacture consistently with high quality, but the other aspect of it is you're going to have to be able to manufacture it cheaper. So I think one of the issues that you're going to have is the US has the highest reimbursement in the world for a lot of things. And so the reimbursement levels I think you can get in the US for a number of these different therapies you aren't going to be able to get in China. So I think China is going to do that, you're going to have to get the appropriate manufacturing technologies in to get the cost down to an appropriate level. I think in conjunction with that, you're going to see that the Chinese government is going to have to reimburse for more of these procedures. And you're going to, in my opinion, need to see an expansion of the private insurance too. And I think a combination of those things would be very important. The other challenges in this industry, and I think all of you in this room know that, there just aren't enough people with cell and gene therapy experience. Okay, so when you're trying to build an industry like that in China, you don't have the advantage that China had when they were building out monoclonals and small molecules, where you have thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people who've been doing this in the industry for a long time. You have an industry where even in the US, there aren't enough people that actually have cell and gene therapy experience, so you got to train them as you go. So I think that will be another significant challenge in the industry. But I think the therapies are so good. I think the outcomes that you can get and the conditions they're treating are so good that if you can address those, this is going to be a very big market. So.
Yeah, my take is there are two areas of challenges that we're talking about. There are common challenges that is to the entire industry in the cell and gene therapy area, as what Felix just said. That is the speed, the cost, and also the consistency. And those are very important, and that is for the industry. And in China, there are unique challenges, and we talk about just that policy side of the situation, the talent,
Yep.
the adherence to international standard, and many of those things that and then I think there's another area that is the technology. In order to address those common challenges, we had to have better technology to support the product development. Say, better cell lines, better media so that we had better titer, and for example, viral therapy, higher full particle, fully effective versus the empty capsules,
Right.
and things like that. And it needs technology. The entire scientific community and the technical advancement need to support that. And then there are other aspects of things that as the logistical support associated with this unique therapy, there are more technology advancement that's already connected to the US side of the movement, and this need to also connect it to the China side too.
Thank you. So other than the regulation and also the manufacturing we have talked about, do you foresee any challenges in the solid tumor or something that is very unique to China from the research foundation side that could help the breakthrough?
I'll leave that to you.
Well, I think in terms of cell therapy for solid tumor, that is the area we are all looking for breakthrough. And there are some progress there, but it's far away from meeting the patient needs. And it takes the whole community working together to advance the science and the technology, and also having the right science to guide the clinical design and the product development. So I make it in a very general comment, and I'm sure that in the audience there are more companies and researchers are looking for breakthrough in getting to this most significant challenge of getting to solid tumors.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's unique to China. I think it's a problem worldwide. I do think that certain treatments will have a larger percentage population in China. And so the people that are making the products will have to figure out which markets to go to first, et cetera. That's a business, a commercial decision, I think. But for me, in terms of a lot of the technology stuff, it's going to be important regardless of what geography you're in. So.
Yeah, so I'll quickly add a comment on that too. Is if you're looking at the difference of 5 years of survival in various solid tumor side of it, at the bottom of it, that really much less progress has been made, do associate with the major cancer instance in Asia, and particularly in China, such as the liver cancer or the esophageal cancer and this kind. So the commercial driven and innovation driven kinds of opportunity does impact those improvements. So now that China is a bigger market that getting the global attention, I'm hoping in that area probably will be more advancement that come in and bring cure to patient.
I think the other aspect is, as mentioned earlier, there's a lot of money going into cell and gene therapy in China. And I think there will need to continue to be good levels of funding to drive this market forward. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So next question is for Felix. So WuXi AppTec, we all know this is a leading giant CRO company now, also CRO combined with CDMO. So what do you foresee as a leading CDMO in terms of driving the whole manufacturing process in China?
So whatever I say today will probably be wrong 5 years from now, but I'll say it anyway. So on the cell therapy side, what we're seeing is more of the companies make their own manufacturing facilities. I think part of that might just be as they're developing the process. Part of that is the government has been very generous in helping these companies. So the government is actively supporting this industry, and so they have provided support when companies are looking to set up manufacturing facilities and things like that. We see that more on the cell therapy side. On the gene therapy plasmid side, we don't see as many companies trying to set up their own facility. What we see is them more using CDMOs. And so that's part of what we see right now. We'll continue to see that. I think the cell therapy will continue to be interesting, not just on the companies manufacturing, but what happens with the hospitals and if they're allowed to manufacture, because that is unique. You will not see in Europe or in the US where a hospital will make their own cell therapy and then sell it to the patient, okay? And that is unique to China, and that is a different rub in the whole thing of how China evolves a little bit right there. But on the cell and gene therapy side, or on the gene therapy side, I do see a lot more use of CMOs. And I also see that that's an area where if you can really get some really good technologies in place, you can really drive down the cost. So whether it's the ability to get the titers much higher through media or other things like that, or whether it's using a different production system. Yeah. You're going from HEK to baculovirus or producer line, or if you're able to find a different way that's completely non-viral, there's a lot of different things that you can do. And any one of those technologies can greatly influence the cost and the adoption rate, in my opinion. So,
near-term wise, any gaps that you foresee that is also going to be turned into challenge opportunities?
Well, I think there's gaps in the U.S. too. So I don't think it's just China, but I think that we're all looking to find the best way to make something predictably at a good cost, and we're all looking at what could be this disruptive technology that will help do that. And so that's why I say whatever I say today will be different 5 years from now, depending on what technology comes in place. Hopefully, as WuXi AppTec, we are participating in part of that technology. And but whatever it's going to be, this industry is growing so fast. It's a fascinating industry, and I think at this point of the life cycle of the industry, there's going to be lots of disruptive technologies. So,
any comments from Yuling?
I agree with what Felix said, and there are so many opportunities that, and particularly in China, I think there are very strong entrepreneur spirit and innovation-driven kinds of leadership that come out. And with that, it would be any challenges will be tackled and will be worked on, and we'll see how those advancements translate into effective therapy or advancement for patients.
Sure. With tons of money now plugged into this sector, could you elaborate a little bit about the recent collaboration in the China market, no matter technology, manufacturing, or other forms of strategic partnership?
Well, okay, so I'll stray a little bit from the question and bring in something that we've noticed recently, which is a lot of the investors these days, when you look at the technologies, there are a fair number of companies that will do CAR-T, or a fair number of companies that are doing particular things. So we have noticed that the Chinese investors are looking to try to bring some new products in to China that aren't necessarily being developed in China. And they're going to do that through a joint venture strategy because it's a protected industry. I bring that up because I think these investors are actively looking for technologies in areas like Europe and the US that are fascinating to them that they can bring in that's different than what's on the China market today. Now, with regards to your question about just technology, et cetera, I think one of the things at least we're trying to do in WuXi, because we do have a China manufacturing, US manufacturing, is it's my belief right now that the process development and expertise, there's more of it in the US right now than there is in China. Again, it's an emerging market. So what we're trying to do is develop platforms for manufacturing to make it more efficient. And if we can develop them in the US, then to move them over to China. The other advantage of that is, quite frankly, if you manufacture with us and then you want to go into Europe, once the structure is set up for you to get into China, you know that you'll be using the same manufacturing process in China. So, but there's different ways that you can try to leverage different technologies. And over time, I see building out a pretty big process development group in China, too, to help us create platforms. So,
excellent. So Yuling, for your company, which is the Innoforce, which is a little bit new to us. Could you share your company's vision, strategy in the next couple of years?
Sure, yes. Well, thank you for the opportunity for me to share this with the audience. Innoforce is a new company. It was founded and established last year in 2018 in China by a true international team. We had people like me who are overseas returnee after decades of work in the US and embracing this opportunity to bring medicine and care to patients. And we also had two American members in our core team. Well, Dr. Ken Carter sitting in the back, who has been a leader of multiple public companies and now is joining us also as our corporate development leader. And our goal to be competitive and differentiate from the other companies is first international focus. We're building capability that is meeting the international quality standard and the regulatory standard. And truly an international team and focus on international quality. And quality is our key differentiator, and that's how we were going to build our capability. And secondly, is a partnership-focused development capability. We are focusing on bringing in partners who are from the east to the west and the west to the east, where global companies who need to come to China, like what Felix mentioned, they need a local hub and anchor companies such as us to get into the China opportunity. But also a lot of domestic innovation that's happening in China. More and more companies in China now is filing in both China and US and EU. And with the international standard platform we build, we're hoping also be their enabler to go to outside China. And then another important aspect is we're in a really absolute fantastic location in Hangzhou, China. We're just about 2 miles away from the airport. And audience may know Hangzhou is where Alibaba was. The logistical movement and resource there is at the top tier. And we happen to be having 65 acres of land to build this capability, and very well funded from a group of private investors and our founder members, and starting this and build this great ambition to connect to the global capability.
So thank you very much. And thank you for your dedicated time and sharing your insights. And thank you for the audience for your participation today.